Jermod McCoy, his ACL tear. How serious is this? I think it's serious in a way that has nothing to do with his knee or his potential play this season or his career. And I'm going to get into that. But first of all, just in terms of Jermod McCoy, who was working out in Texas, tearing his ACL, how serious is this for the Vols?
Oh, I think this is a major blow. And I don't care that people say he could be back by the start of the season. There's three flaws with that argument. One, how will he have lost a step or not if he's back by the start of the season? I mean, typically ACLs, you don't really lose a step once you fully heal, but it's possible. Two, will he be in football shape at the start of the season? And three, will he be rusty? But then beyond all of those things, guys, most importantly, Jermod McCoy was Tennessee's lockdown corner who's the reason you and I both agree, Dave. That's the reason the secondary did a 180 last year, right?
Yes.
That doesn't mean he doesn't have room for improvement. Because what happened when Jermod McCoy went up against Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State or up against Georgia? He kind of got cooked a little bit. And it wasn't because he wasn't good enough. It was because he was still young. He was still raw. He had some developing to do. The biggest problem with an injury in college football, when you spend the offseason rehabbing, is that you don't get the chance to be better and develop more to be better than you were the previous year. So now, Jermod McCoy, the development that he needs to help Tennessee take that next step so they can compete with the Georgia or Ohio State, that's not going to happen next year. Not to mention, I just mentioned Georgia. Georgia's going to be loaded with athletes no matter what. Forget the quarterback. Alabama next year is going to have a quarterback capable of running that system. They're not going to be the easy out that they were this past year with Jalen Milroe. I'm telling you guys that right now. So Jermod McCoy will be tested a lot more against those schools, and he still hasn't proven himself against elite competition, and he needed to spend this offseason getting better to do that. Now he won't be spending this offseason getting better. He's going to be spending his offseason just getting back to the level of play that he was last year, and we don't even know if he's going to do that.
No, you're right. And as far as all the optimism surrounding his recovery, that's what everybody says, right? I mean, nobody says, oh boy, this one's bad, he's out for the year. And to be real honest with you, I'm not going to call out any names, but there are certainly some reporters out there that would like to shovel you information that's directly from the coaches in order to develop better sources. Trust me, I've been there. So I don't trust any report that says he's going to be ready for the beginning of the season. And you just alluded to that. Caleb, here's my bigger problem with this. And I wrote about it on offthehooksports.com is you have an athletic budget that was recently announced at close to $200 million, right? Yet you have Vols all over the place, practicing everywhere on their own without the medical supervision that Tennessee is able to provide. And that comes with warm-ups, that comes with cool downs, that comes with all of that stuff. I seriously doubt that McCoy had that in Texas. Now, I'm not just knocking Jermod McCoy. I also do not know why Nico Iamaleava is in LA with Mike Matthews and Brew McCoy. I know Brew McCoy's from there, but why isn't Nico back in Knoxville throwing to all of the receivers that are going to be his targets this upcoming season instead of throwing to one, Mike Matthews? So I feel for and empathize with Josh Heupel because used to be to get home, you would literally save up $14 to get on the bus and go back home because you were quitting football. Nowadays, these guys have so much money. If he wanted to practice in Paris, he could. My issue is, and you tell me if I'm old fuddy-duddy, but after the Vols got beat in the 1998 Orange Bowl with Peyton Manning at the helm, Al Wilson was back in the weight room calling every single player to tell them it's time to get started on next season. Well, who's the leader for this team now? Because if Nico's in LA, I've got a serious question about his leadership. Listen, the McCoy injury could happen if he was walking downstairs, but I would feel much better about it if I'm a Tennessee fan if it happened in their indoor facility. That is way different to me, Caleb, than going out on your own. And I have no earthly idea why Nico's in LA. I mean, it's befuddling. I mean, how many practices you've got? Class starts next week, so they'll all be back on campus. But how many potential, and I'm air quoting here if you're listening on audio, voluntary or mandatory practices could be held if Nico took the same stance as Peyton Manning? Again, I'm going to sound like the old guy, but Peyton Manning caught criticism from the NCAA and got the Vols in a little bit of trouble because he put mandatory meetings or mandatory practice at 2 p.m. during the middle of the summer. Well, you can't do that. You can't have mandatory practices. But in Al Wilson's case, you sure as heck can have some insight into players' dedication, pass that along to the coaches, grow chemistry. To me, it's almost as troubling that Nico is in LA and not a part of this team as McCoy being in Texas and not having the medical guidance that he would have had in Knoxville. I think the much ballyhooed culture that we've talked about, I'm not saying it's dead, but I think that it's very much at stake right now. And if Josh Heupel wants to win a championship at Tennessee, he needs to reinstate that good vibe bill, because right now we know Nico's father asked for more money. Right now, it just doesn't seem like kumbaya land in Knoxville anymore. It seems the exact opposite.
Yeah, and we know things permeate from the quarterback, because let's be honest, Dave, one of the reasons Al Wilson was able to call those meetings right after the 97 Orange Bowl, or the 98 Orange Bowl, I guess, was because even though Peyton Manning left, Peyton Manning was doing that for 3 years at Tennessee.
Right.
And I think it kind of stuck out. I don't think T. Martin was going to have any hesitancy to help take on leadership roles. There was but if your quarterback, the guy that the team is built around, says, I'm going to go lollygag in LA and work out on my own, how the heck is the rest of the team supposed to follow?
I don't know. I don't know. It's something that I wanted to talk about early in the week, and but we had so much going on, and now Unsung puts in the message board, Merck and GMAC are throwing to other receivers. Maybe. Yeah, well, I would hope so. And I'll tell you what, if McIntyre and Merklinger look like they're even close to Nico, I know this sounds insane, but if they're even close, the fact that they stayed around town, if they did, means that I'm going to lean towards those guys. I never thought I would do this, but I'm questioning Nico's dedication to be a superstar player at Tennessee as opposed to his dedication just to be a superstar, period. Am I being too hard on him?
No, but I will also say we also don't know how much of this is his dad pulling the strings to try to make him do things like this. I mean, you probably know more about that than I do, but his dad could be so focused on trying to prop him up, get him with NFL scouts and have him work out with those guys, to have him in the position to do what he needs to do. Now, again, there's a way to do this without it being to the detriment of the team you're playing for, because I don't think there's any question that when Peyton Manning was at Tennessee, he was meticulously doing his homework about how to set himself up for the pros, right? Yes. Constantly. We also know that Archie Manning was very heavily involved in trying to make sure both of his sons got drafted by the right organizations, hence the reason Eli refused to go to the Chargers. People can hate him for that, but he knew that the Chargers were an incompetent organization because Archie Manning, as we know, did not want his kids to deal with what he had to deal with in New Orleans, with playing for such an incompetent organization for so many years.
Agreed. I'm sorry, go ahead.
But I don't think anybody, but what Archie didn't do was impact anything about how they were coached when they were at the school they were playing at. Never did he do something like that.
And Steve, to your point, by the way, your book's in the mail. It dropped in yesterday. My apologies for the delay. Steve says, I would hope that Heupel would know where everyone is and what they're doing. He could have given them time off. Certainly. Take as much time off as you want. Who wants a championship? If you want a championship, you don't take as much time off. I go back to that 98 team. They held full practices without pads during the summer. I mean, it was physical. It was crazy. Now, I don't doubt that Heupel knows where he is. Here's his problem. If he says, Nico, man, I just don't want you going out there. You should stay close to home and rally the troops and get some extra practices in. I can't call practice, but you can as a player. Nico could say stick it because he's got cash. If he hadn't messed up his money, is financially independent, and he also, if he's not happy, can transfer. So how serious is the Jermod McCoy issue? Well, I think it's a sign of bigger issues. And if you got big legal issues, today's tough question is brought to you by Banks and Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney, banksandjones.com. Why Banks and Jones? Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks and Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks and Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks and Jones. T. Scott Jones. All right, so I want to get to this comment on the message board, and that is Dan says they are not going to live on campus 24/7. Those days are over. I don't doubt that, but if you're going to be working out anyway, you should be in Knoxville. I mean, Dan, you can't disagree with me there. I mean, if you're working out, why aren't you working out with all of Tennessee's other receivers? You don't think Amari Jefferson could benefit from some work with Nico? I think it's a selfish move, and I think it's a sign of a guy that is really more interested in being great at football than a great Vol. And those are two very separate things. Bobby says you idiots do all you can to stir the pot for clicks. Bobby, if you believe that, that's fine. I will tell you 100%. I've never said anything on the air in 25 years that I don't genuinely believe. So
yeah, we're just making a big deal out of nothing when the starting number one cornerback for Tennessee just tore his ACL. Nothing to see here, guys. Why are we making a big deal out of that whatsoever, Dave?
Yeah, no,
we're just manufacturing a story there.
Well, yeah, and listen, the bottom line is the teams that are going to win championships now that the talent level is going to be spread out, Caleb, it's going to be the teams with the best chemistry. That is absolutely going to be the difference maker. And I thought Josh Heupel was ahead of the curve in that regard. And now I've got to wonder.
Let's address the question too of what will they do if Jermod is not ready to go? Do you think they'll move Ricky Gibson over to the number one cornerback spot or put Jordan Thomas? That's what David Speaks is asking. I think they need to go to the transfer portal route. I think they need to open up the checkbook, get another guy in. And I don't know who that is.
I would have no problem with that. We'll have something on that later on offthehooksports.com. If you can, please click that like button, subscribe as well. Game No Bueno said, I'm late. What did I miss? Well, I questioned the direction of Tennessee's entire program, but some people think I'm just doing that for clicks.
And the main story, mainly because Jermod McCoy tore his ACL.
Yeah.
Working out in Texas. Not working out in Knoxville, but working out in Texas.
Yes. And you have Nico and Mike Matthews working out in LA with Brew McCoy. Here, okay, one last thing, and I'm getting off my soapbox. When like Cooper Mays is in Arizona right now, I talked to him yesterday, and he is working out and getting ready for the NFL Combine. Guys, those drills, that 40-yard dash, that vertical jump has absolutely nothing to do with football. When they teach you to run your 40, your first two steps are supposed to be so long that you almost fall on your face. And in fact, I've absolutely seen players fall on their face in the 40-yard dash. And that's because you're taught that way. You would never play football like that. It is a totally different training method. So I don't even know what Brew McCoy and Nico might be doing. I guess Nico will throw to him in Tennessee's pro day, I suppose. But to me, Brew McCoy has to do some stuff at the combine too, which is clearing up a question about his injury background. But I don't get it. They shouldn't even. I mean, there would be some overlap. Let's say in a 40-hour work week, yes, you want to run routes and throw to a receiver for a few hours. But mostly what Brew McCoy should be doing is dumb drills that the NFL makes you do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that, and when we talk championship teams, you're right. It's This kind of reminds me of, do you remember when NFL had the voluntary workouts, but like Peyton Manning every year would like require basically that his receivers show up for those voluntary OTAs? And someone complained, but it's not just, I mean, it's twofold. Yeah, you may not have to go, but sorry, excuse me. Do you want a championship? Also, would you like a big contract? When you want a big contract? Because, you know, if you worked out with Peyton Manning, he's going to get you a big contract because you're going to get a lot of yards catching the ball. So, excuse me. Yeah, but yeah, I mean, that is a big deal. Now, to the root of this, do you think he'll be ready to go at the start of the year? Do you think he'll at least be as good as he was last year?
Jermod McCoy?
Yeah.
No. He's not going to be 100% by August 30th against Syracuse. And you would.
And by the way, they play Georgia the third week of the season.
Yeah, that's your goal. I mean, they're not going to come out and say that, but just like, do you remember when the goal was to get Cooper Mays in the Florida game? So he skipped the game before, but turns out he wasn't healthy enough. I mean, these guys, I mean, this is just logical. Sometimes we overthink coaching. It's logical to say, who cares about Syracuse on September the 30th? And I don't know what Syracuse is bringing to the 2025 season. Who cares? This should be Georgia. You should absolutely be.
But he won't be ready by Georgia either, I don't think. September the 13th?
Well, that's just, I think that is at least realistic. Let's put it that way. I think that's realistic.
That's ambitious, though, isn't it?
That is still ambitious. Great word. Yep. I would choose both of those.